Well, formally, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the OPA Organic Products Associates Family Call. We do this monthly, and this month is May 13th, 2024. Nice to see you all. And before we have a fantastic call with our speaker, just let me take a few moments for those people who do not know what OPA is, and for those who do, a little refresher. Mary and Gary Loomis, Shackley Lifetime Residential Master Coordinators, are the ones who started this business way back when. I'm not sure the exact year, but they built a business, and Mary did most of the business. Gary really took care of Mary's sunglasses. That's what he jokingly said. He always had to make sure her sunglasses. But she built this business, and she had the foresight to know that she was building would become a huge, huge organization. And she wanted to have it so that everybody could feel a part of it and didn't want to use their name, but use a generic, important name that everybody could relate to. So she called it Organic Products Associates, or OPA for short. And she ran this business extremely successfully, as you all could guess, and it grew very large, one of the largest Shackley businesses that there is. And then, as she matured and passed on, her son, Rob Loomis, she groomed to take over the business. And he, being an attorney and a PhD, had some smarts in how to run a business. So he's taken over the business and runs it from Boston to Maine. And he assigns each master, we all group get together, and each master takes a month to have a call like this. That's our privilege to have the OPA call this month. And Anna's going to do most of the call from here because we got a dynamic, fantastic speaker, and I can't wait to hear her. So Alan, shut up and let's roll.
So welcome everybody, and we're excited to have you here tonight, and you'll be excited too by the time the call's over because you're going to get to hear a wonderful speaker tonight and a dear friend, Nina Staple. And she's Senior Executive Coordinator. And she reminded me today of where we first met was on one of the Shackley cruises, and we were next door neighbors with our cabins. And one of the things that I'm also in another group with Nina where we meet once a week, and I'm just constantly astonished by her wisdom, how she draws from her experience, how she inspires and motivates others, how she lifts them up, and so unselfish. She shares absolutely everything. And we're really excited because I want you to get to hear from this dedicated leader tonight. And she's going to start up by giving us her story, and then we'll talk some more after that. So without further ado, Nina, would you like to get started?
Wow. Thank you, Hannah. I hope I live up to what you said.
You do.
Puts pressure on me. Thank you, but I'm excited to be able to share my story with you tonight. I know some of you on here, and I don't know some of you on here, so this is kind of fun. I got involved in Shackley for totally different reasons than most of you probably have, because it was not for my health, and it wasn't for the money. I was working 2 full-time jobs, and my husband was on the road all the time, and we had a high income, so I got in for tax benefits. Because we were both waking, it killed me to give all that money to Uncle Sam, bottom line. I guess I shouldn't say that so loud. But anyways, don't ask me how I knew that, but I did know that for some reason or another, an in-home business would save me all kinds of dollars in taxes. And let me tell you, in the past 45 years, it's saved me thousands. I know why, because I was an Avon lady. I was one of those ding-dong ladies, and I must have learned some of it there. So anyways, somebody just asked me the other day for some tax stuff with Shackley, and I thought, you know what, I need to share that again as I was reading through it, because I thought, this is all about education. Everything we do in this business is about education. And unless people know it, how do they know it, right? It's so different than working a 9-to-5 job, because most of our income is I say my income is spendable. A lot of it is. And that's because this country was built on small businesses, right? That's why we have so many savings. So today I walked into the tax lady and she had this great big money tree, and it was a big white tree and it was filled with all these dollar bills. And the first thing that popped into my head is, wow, she really does know her tax stuff. But it was a fundraiser, so I was off on that. But anyway, so here to my story. I thought I was healthy. I was young. I was invincible. I figured that I was like everybody else. And my health story, when I look back at it today, is like, wow, how many people think like this out there today? How many people think that they're healthy when they have headaches all the time like I did? I thought that that was just part of life. Everybody gets headaches, right? I carried aspirin in my purse all the time. I had horrendous cycles every month. I was in so much pain all the time that yes, when I was younger, I missed a lot of school and I would stay home from work sometimes from it. But that's part of being a woman, right? When I think about it, this part though, I had bladder infections, really bad bladder infections every single month, that within an hour of my first symptom, I would be urinating blood. I had a standing prescription. I didn't think there was anything wrong because the doctor didn't tell me that there was anything to be concerned about. So I would just call up and say, hey, I got another one. I need some more drugs. When I think about this, it's like, wow, I know why people think the way they do today. So many people. I truly believe that they were kidney infections though, because I ended up with kidney cancer. So enter Shackley, and you know you don't have any pain, you don't think about it. So it was probably about a month, and then all of a sudden it's like, I don't get headaches anymore. And then a little while later, it's like, oh, my period just happened again. And then it was a year after that, oh, I didn't get bronchitis anymore. So, but then 25 years later, I fell and I broke some ribs, and they told me I hadn't. But so I went back and got a CAT scan, and then they said, oh, guess what? You've got kidney cancer. And I just want to say to everybody, make sure you always get a second opinion. I don't care what you think, you have an amazing doctor, always get a second opinion. Because I went to Mayo, and thanks to that, they saved my kidney. My body had built a complete protection around that mass. So I don't know if I can say it encased it. I guess we have to be so careful anymore, but it went nowhere. It was right there. It stayed in that spot. They did not have to take out my kidney. They only took 10% of it. And I know our bodies are amazing. And so I have 1.9 kidneys now instead of 2. So that's pretty amazing, considering here they wanted to take my kidney out. And I always say, God and Shackley. I am so thankful that I had been doing Shackley for 25 years. And there's a lot of things through the years that have happened that I'm like, wow. So thankfully my body's had completely encased that. And that's how I got started in Shackley. So how life changes everything, this is possible for everybody, right? So I grew up in the foothills in Montana, and it's so amazing how life has so many highs and lows, but it never has to stop anybody. I grew up a farm girl, and then I became a waitress. I graduated from high school, ended up in the courthouse, and then after that, I was 22 years old. I was an elected official, and then I got married to a Wisconsin dairy farmer. And 4 months later, I got into Shackley. So that's kind of back and forth, but and within a couple of months, became a director, or I guess they called them supervisors back then, with 3,000 PV. And any of you who have been around for a while, you know that that's equivalent to 9,000 or 10,000 PV today in 3 months. Think about that. When I hear people saying that it takes how long to get to director now, and they think it's great if they bring in 3 people a month. Think about that. I so often go back to that, and it's like, we can do so much better than what we are. Sorry, I got off there, but I got pregnant. Oh, and you know what? we used to pack all that stuff up. We would get it shipped into us and then we'd pack it all up and we'd ship it out to, well, the people that weren't local. But I got pregnant. We moved to Wisconsin and I went across the country where I didn't know anybody. And being pregnant, I didn't feel right to go and get a job and leave it 5 months later. So I was shipping products back to Montana now, but there was something that was missing in my life. And it was the people. Because I didn't know anybody here. And cows don't talk back. I went on to a dairy farm. But I loved people and I wanted to help them. So I decided that I needed to get back in and build again. I was in an abusive marriage. I stayed there for 27 years. But that taught me to fight for what I wanted. And that was to really live and make a difference for other people. But it's taught me so much about business and personal issues that I could help so many other people with. So I want to ask, how many of you remember the days, of course, when we had no cell phones and we had no internet to do this business? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was so much harder than it is today. But why can't we build these businesses today? I look at that so often and I think the fight isn't there. Why don't we fight? I often think that because of all the BS that I went through in my life, I shouldn't call it that. Because of all of the challenges and the ups and downs, I knew I was a fighter, okay? I was a fighter for myself and for my kids, and that just carried over into my Shackley business, that it was going to be successful. Did I run into challenges with that? Of course I did. But when I wanted to see the people again, I know that this company really shows that we're a relationship business. It's not about the money. Of course, we want to make money, but you can do this with or without an education. As you said, as I said, I started this right out of high school, but I think that we all end up with double masters. We end up with an MPA, Master in People, and we end up with an MBA, a Master in Business. And then you get to the Master of Shackley, right?
Mm.
So when I had my kids, I got to pick and choose when I worked because I built this with my children, and I'm sure some of you did as well. But when my kids went to bed is when I worked, or when my kids took a nap is when I worked. And once in a while, I'd get a babysitter to sit home with my husband and watch the kids. When I think back on that, it's kind of funny, actually. We're running into a bunch of those babysitters today, and they're like, we always thought it was kind of weird that your husband was home and you want me to take care of the kids. But that was the life. That's the way that it was, right? So I've never, ever worked Shackley full-time. I have always worked part-time, but I've always treated it like a business and not a hobby. And I think that's important. I always had, I shouldn't say always, because, well, I'll talk about that after a little bit. I've never been a big star in anything with Shackley. I've just been steady. And I think that's the biggest thing. And we heard over and over and over back in the day, and I don't think we hear it as much now. Don't ever quit. Because when you quit, you can't move forward. But if you keep working at it, you're going to get there. And I've been in 16 different countries, some of them multiple times. I've been on ukus of cruises, and I've had 12 bonus cars. I don't have any education, but you know what? I have that MPA and MBA. My definition of it. So we all know that business does not come without challenges. There's nothing good that does. I still remember Gary Burke. I had a big up and then a big down. And I still remember Gary Burke coming up to me once. And he looked me straight in the face and he said, Nina, I don't know what happened to you, but somewhere along the way, you lost your self-confidence. You need to figure it out and you need to get it back. I remember exactly where I was standing. I can see him looking straight in my face and with no confidence. I just kind of swallowed and I said, thank you so much. And I went and sat down and I pondered on that because I had done nothing for about 6 years. Well, I say nothing. I mean, you have to continue to sponsor people to keep your business going. But it's all up here. You know, and I say, I used to think about, I dreamed about making $50,000 a year. And I thought, man, that would be amazing. And I just kept thinking 50,000 a year. But then when you get there, you think, wow, this really doesn't seem like that much. So then I thought, wow, if I could only make 100, I'll just keep working. And then I thought, wow, if I could make 150. Of course, this is not by myself, it's with my team. So now we're off to making 200. But I tell you this to show you possibilities and to keep your head in the right place. You have to focus on your goals and your mindset. We all know that it's so easy to let negatives, and we've had a lot of them around lately, but don't focus on that. You've got to figure out how to get up in front of that. And then keep moving towards your goals. It's never, ever a straight line. Anybody who's been around for a while knows that. I was kind of shocked when I found that out, because I always thought the business went like this, because you watch other people and you see their successes, but you never see the hard parts. But that's one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn. But I have to say, this is the best life ever. And whatever you work toward, you must start believing it first. First, you have to see it, and then you believe it, and then you achieve it. And do not ever let the hardships stop you or turn you into victim mentality like I did. I sat at 36K for so many years because I allowed myself to, you know, when people don't work the business, we think we did something wrong. It's not that. It's not about us. We have to learn that the business is about those that we touch. I remember Roland saying to me years ago that there's director thinking and there's coordinator thinking. And that was for first level directors. And I think that's where our focus has to go back to again, getting 4 first level directors and helping them do that. And I didn't understand it because I'm the one that needed the money at the time, because I got a divorce. And so I couldn't get past it's not about me, but I need the money. It's not about me, but I need the money. So I finally learned that lesson, that my whole thing is, it's about loving people where they're at. It's hard in the beginning because we always wanted, I always did, and I'm sure many of you did, wanted it for them worse than they wanted it for themselves. So don't set yourself up for disappointment, just love them. My thinking is so totally different now than it was a year ago. I can even say my thinking is better than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. We just continually grow, and that's what this business is really about. We get to build, not have to, we get to build physical, emotional, and spiritual and financial health. It's not about one, it's about all 4. So I've been in Shaklee for 45 years. I feel like I'm just getting started. But remember, we should always be the smallest of the 5 people that we hang around the most of the time, because they will bring you down to their thinking otherwise. Always be listening to people who have achieved more than us. And I'm so thankful because of this business. My kids have such entrepreneurial thinking. And they're so blessed. They always listen to all these Shaklee things in the car. Wherever we went, from little, there was always tapes or CDs in the car. So always think about the amazing tool that we have with our business to build our futures, because it's there for all of us and for us to share. That's all I have, Hannah.
Oh, first of all, I want you to repeat that one that you just said about who you hang around with.
Oh,
Say
always
that again. That was
remember,
worth me.
okay, always remember that you should be the smallest, the least of the 5 people you spend the most time with, because you will come down to their thinking. I'll tell you who who really got that into my head was Danelle. Because I worked with her for 5 years, getting through stuff that I thought I was through. But we got to hang around with all these different billionaires all the time. And it was so amazing because they're no different than any of us, except here. That's the whole difference. But listening to them think bigger and how they did. And we had a billionaire one time that was there with us. We were in Mexico and he was talking. There was, I think, 20 of us. And we're in this little room and he's talking and he is sweating profusely, sharing what he did. And he started out by working with Zig Ziglar, offering to be his chauffeur. And he was dripping wet. And I thought, man, Ty, it's not that hot in here. And then he said, you guys, I'm really sorry. He said, I am so nervous talking to you guys. And we were all peons compared to him. But he knew business. He loved people tremendously. And he was such a giver. But he said, I don't know how to do public speaking. And we were sitting around a table. So, but he was one of my 5 that are, and still is. Yeah.
I love that. I've never heard anything put quite that way. Certainly understand the message, but that's really cool. I like that a lot.
That's why I've hung around with masters for so many years.
Okay, so I have another question too.
Okay.
So during this time, with all the things that you were going through, how did you keep yourself motivated then? And how do you keep yourself motivated today?
I do the same thing I did when my kids were growing up. Now, today it's a little different because my car isn't full of CDs and cassette tapes and whatever. But today there's so many amazing podcasts. And I love to listen to people who are like Ed Milet is an amazing person that I listen to. He's a very strong business person and a very strong Christian.
Say who again, the name, please?
Ed Milet, Milett. You always hear really amazing things on his podcast that just get your head in. Jessie Lee used to be somebody that I listened to all the time too, because she came into this, and this is such a great reminder. She came into the business because she only wanted $300 a month. And she became the largest network marketer in the world in, what was it, 11 years? The largest. So her thinking was amazing to listen to. Of course, I still have connections with Janelle all the time, but it's always listening to good stuff. And it's podcasts. Eric Worre is another one I think that we should be listening to because he understands this industry more than anybody. Like the restrictions that are coming down on us right now with Shackley, he talks about things are different than they were, and so, I mean, I knew about all this that was happening before we knew about it from Shackley, even though we don't like it. It's part of what's changed with the industry because of the government. So I don't know if that was way off subject, but.
No, but that's good. All right. So what would you say it has changed in any way, how you motivate yourself today? Because your whole life has changed.
My whole life has changed, but you know what? I think you just have a different level of what you will allow in. I mean, I don't listen to any news. I'm sorry. I hear what's going on in the world from other people. To me, if it's not positive, I'll listen to somebody, but I'm not going to stay involved in that because it's so easy to get sucked down. Today, it's so easy to get. Hey, I want to be completely candid here with our Shackley business. I have to say, with what's been going on with the company, and you hear all the negatives that are going on here, and then and so then I got it. Okay, I'm not going there anymore. I know this is my business. This is my livelihood. This is my legacy to leave for my kids. I have to figure out how this is going to work down the road. Well, we're blessed that we got to stay in where we're at, but how are we going to make it work down the road? And that's where my mind went to right away. So with that, but then, I mean, there's so much misinformation that Field Support even has. But I got off the phone last week one day and I was like in tears because I thought, what's going to happen? It was a misinformed Field Support person. So I just prayed about it and I called another agent. So
We don't like one answer, we'll call it, get a different one,
No
right?
matter what. And now we'll wait and figure out until they figure out what's really going on.
Gosh, that's funny. So what kinds of things, I know, by the way, there are a lot of people in here who might not know anything about Danelle's. Do you want to just
Oh,
tell a tiny little bit about that?
oh, well, Danelle was hired by Shackley, is it 2 years ago now? But it's
Wow.
still,
Yeah,
it's
maybe three.
maybe 3. Okay, either 2 or 3 years ago, but anyway, she was hired by Shackley to come in and help with the mindset. Because she knew that if people didn't have the right mindset, they were not going to be able to build this business. And we were kind of in a lull, so people had to improve their mindset. And I think several of you may have listened to it, but Shackley is the only company that she has ever allowed to save her recordings. And they're in Shackley's website called Field Development. They're still available. And any of you that listen to it, I encourage you to go back and listen again. And if you haven't, go and listen to it the first time, right?
Yeah, she is amazing.
Excellent.
She
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
And one of the things that she taught us was to do a journal of 10 blessings that you have experienced, 10 things that you're grateful for every single day. I have never been able to keep myself with a diary when I was younger or a journal. And I was just determined, I thought, this one's too good. We have to make sure we do that. And sometimes I have to catch up from the day before occasionally, but I've really honored that. And that was at least 2 years.
You know,
That's why she-
something else that she had to do, it wasn't just the gratitude, it was gratitude, goals, and grace. There's a fourth,
Right.
I don't remember what it is, but writing those goals every single day until you achieve them is huge. Because what does that do? Repetition, yep. It gets into your brain and then you start believing it more. And you have to believe it first before you can actually achieve it.
True. And those of you who are fans of Dr. Queso, the message is the same.
Yes.
And he talks about how he wrote down every single day. I think it was maybe 100 times, did he say? He would write that down in a day. Anybody remember? I don't remember the exact number, but he did it daily for sure.
And that's a good book to read. One that he promotes all the time is Thoughtsmanship. And they're reprinting it. So anybody that wants that, and the Shackley story is another one that I don't think is getting reprinted, but yeah.
Yeah, but they are so good, aren't they?
They are. And
Our
it's like,
founder
wow.
really, I mean, if you go through and read motivational books today, what they generally say is boiled down into thoughtsmanship. Dr. Shackley really knew what he was doing. What were we going to say?
Nina, can I ask you a question, please?
I'll hopefully have an answer.
Okay, well, when you bring a new person in, what are some of the things you do to get them started, whether it's as a member or an ambassador? Or maybe
Well, they're kind of different. So a member, we do new member appointments. I have a process that they go through. I have an email thing that they get set, and and I hope I don't step on any toes here, but I don't like all of the emails that Shackley sends out. So most of my new members actually opt out of all the promotional emails and just take the health emails. Because I send them emails with all the promotions in it. And I would rather, this is our business. And I would rather that they're loyal to me. We know they love the products. So yeah, I do that. I have new member appointment. It's very important that they know how to get into more product lines. They get to do, they get to try more stuff. So an ambassador gets to do the same thing, because I feel for somebody to be good as an ambassador, and now I won't sign up ambassadors as fast as I did before. And I think most of you on here probably agree to that, but I want them to be very good product users, and I want them to bring people to me first until we figure out what's really going on here. But it's ambassadors, this is so hard this is very hard for me to talk about because it goes against everything I know, but this new sales plan is totally different. And it's teaching people how to build strong first levels and help them get strong second levels. And when I think back to Gary Burke, he really promoted that. Did you know that Gary Burke never did a meeting for anybody that wasn't first level to him? And I think Queso does the same thing, doesn't he? He works with his first levels all the time, but helps them build strong. And that's how you build down them. I don't know if that answered your question, Alan.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And Al Hagerman has had that same philosophy forever.
And I've
He's built
heard
it
that
down.
from other successful network marketers. I listen to a lot of other network marketers as well. Because the people who are successful is who we have to follow.
Right, and it's just a little different concept. We've always taught about working in depth, meaning the people that you find, then work through them to find their people and continue on along that line to build that depth. But now in depth means something a little different.
Yes.
Go build wide, you want people to be first generation to you, and then help them to teach the same things. So ultimately, you should still have the depth.
Yes. And I think that I know you guys really brought in a lot of people with a business. And I think men do that more than women do. Women are the comforters. And I think that when people use the products and share with their friends and families, that you're still going to get their customers, get their strong customers. And I know that that way a new person will continue making money up front, better money than if they just have a few customers, 3 a month, that will never make them move forward. I don't believe.
And Mary Loomis used to teach that get everybody to 7,000 volume, because she said she's never known anybody in Shackley who was unhappy that did at least 7,000.
And that's true today too, because
Right.
with this new plan, that's the breaking point.
Yeah.
So you have a new member, Nina. How do you get them into the total product line?
How, what now?
How do you get them to be using the total product line?
Well, I'm big about doing skincares. I'm very big about that. It's harder when they're from a distance, but I think that most people are going to bring their people in locally. We're going to go back to starting locally than we did from wherever they were. So, but skincares are very important because that gets them into a good second line, because while they're doing the skincare, you can educate them more about the nutrition as well. And I always tell people, that's how I get them into the third line, actually. I always tell people is if you want to save money, let's get the toxins out of your home and at least start with laundry and basic H, because that will help you pay for your supplements too. So, because there's such a huge savings there. And just about everybody does that, laundry and basic H, along with if they start with the Ready Set Wellness, and even if they don't, because I've had some lately that haven't, that are getting phenomenal results with stuff that we can't really talk about. No, I can say this. I can say this. I have a customer, I have a couple of them that are this way, but she came to me with a page and a half of medication.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
When you see that, you find out how blessed we are again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, Nana, you look so good. You're 70 years old. I can't believe that. Because she's close to my age. She said, how much medication are you on? I said, Song, I'm not on any. And so she went home, and then, because she came here to get eggs, because my daughter-in-law dropped her eggs off here. And then she called me a little while later and she goes, or sent me a message, is it okay if you and I get together so I can talk about Shackley again? So years ago, she looked at Shackley and it was all about medicine. She looked at Shackley's medicine. Now she understands the difference. So I got her started on a program. She was on 3 different medications for diabetes, and she still couldn't get her blood sugar. 190, I think, is where her blood sugar was averaging. I'm like, 190, is that safe? Anyway, so within 2 months, she chose to go off from her third diabetic medication, and her blood sugar is at 115.
Oh, beautiful.
And she said, you know what? She said, I think I need to go off another one. I said, why don't you wait a little while? Let's at least do 2 months, right?
Yeah.
But when you see the difference you can truly make for people, it's craziness to me.
So do I hear you saying that when things aren't always just perfect, you go back to reminding yourself of your why and what a difference you're making for others?
Well, and how blessed I am. You know what? I don't care where you are in this business. All you have to do is look around and count your blessings every day, one by one. And when you focus on that gratitude part, then whatever challenges you have, really, I mean, I really don't get that upset that often, but when I got off the phone call last week and I was told that everybody was going to be terminated if they didn't have this opt-in thing done, I got up. I said, how can you do that? How can you take my business away? And everybody's seasoned leaders on here, I think, right? And I sat here and I just put my head down and I felt like crying. And I was like, Lord, please take this away. And then I'm like, you know what? You've blessed me so much. I have so much to be grateful for every day. This is all going to work out okay. So I do a lot of probably weird talk to myself. But you know what? I went back to that email and I read it, and what that lady told me was totally wrong. And so I called back in and she goes, no, we're not going to terminate anybody.
Talk about misinformation.
And I think it's because everything is so up in the air, even at field support, they don't know. They haven't been properly trained yet, but anyway.
Well, we had a meeting today with Roger, and one of the things that he talked about is the importance and value of getting to the leadership conference, the summit, June 20th and 21st.
Yes.
And one of the things, of course, he pointed out is that it's a shortened version, but it's not going to be a lesser version. It's still going to be as outstanding as ever. And there are going to be certain things that you don't get if you do it virtually.
Well, first of all, you don't get the whole conference because you don't get any of the workshops.
Right.
You just
It's
get
sound like
the
they're awesome.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then there's going to be some new products that you will be the first ones to get to try, and everybody else will be able to order them.
Sure, she said to try.
Yes, on our faces, right?
Oh, we don't know.
Oh, maybe I'm talking out of school.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what.
We had a meeting. I thought everybody knew that because they told us at those regional meetings, but okay, we got some pretty cool stuff coming.
Yes, well, they did. They talked about those.
Yeah.
I think that was open. That's some of the new things coming out. But anyhow, we're also going to get a one of a kind of gift along the same thing with the product too. So that's a good reason to be there in person for sure.
Yeah.
And as you all know, who've ever been to a conference before, there is a magic, a synergy that happens. It is just something that you cannot create online. I'd rather see people certainly take this virtually than not do anything for sure. But if there's anything possible, as Roger said, if you are physically able, find a way to get there, because you'll never regret it.
Well, and I will tell you that being at the regional in Chicago, when they did, Roger coming around, it's like, man, do I miss these. There is that synergy. And it's like, this has to happen more often. People need to get together. We got away from it through the pandemic, but yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, one of the key reasons for me to go is to hear and see Dr. Peter Attia. If you haven't read anything about him, he's got a book. It's called Outlive. It's a big book. You can get it and read it. But to hear him and meet him, to me, after reading about him, it's going to be tremendous. He talks about longevity the way it should be, not the way it is.
Right.
So that to me is well worth. the conference.
In fact, I
And
love
and
this.
he is $100,000 for you to work with him a year.
But, no,
No.
wait, that's $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
But to start with him, there's an initiation of 300,000.
Oh, I
Then
didn't hear
100,000.
that part.
Yeah.
Roger told us that, so that's why I think we can repeat that.
Oh, wow. Wow. Wow.
Can you imagine that?
So to hear him speak in person and to get his material, it's going to be wow. So
Yes.
do a
Yes.
little research online and read about him.
And I think you all probably know that they're giving $100 discount on the
Ticket through the end of the month.
Yeah, so this is a great time to
$199.
get other people to decide to join you. And in terms of room rates, I know everything's happened crazy with hotels in the last couple of years. But one of the beauties in our business is how many times people will either have a roommate or 4 roommates so that they can keep the cost down. And sometimes people even find that they can get a timeshare right by there. I mean, there's so many different options. So really encourage you, if you know that you can at all do it, be there.
Yes, it will pay for itself, I think, with time, because we are at the beginning of a new era.
Right.
And we need to participate if we want to move forward with our businesses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything in life is a choice. Everything is a choice.
Sure is.
And you know, you look at some of the people that you've worked with and they've left, and it's like, and then they come back and they're like, are you still doing that thing? It's like, well, I have a pretty nice living from that thing, you know, but their belief wasn't there.
Right. Well, unfortunately, sometimes people can't get past their own head.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so a lot of what Nina has been saying to you tonight is the importance and value of working on your head. She's mentioned about Danelle, Ed Milet, Eric Worry. And do you have any other favorites?
Oh,
And
well,
or
I've done
favorite
everything with,
books?
yes. Eric Worre's wife, Marina, is amazing as well. And she's got a really inexpensive conference that's coming up right now because she is women in network marketing, not Shackley. But she's a dynamic speaker, and some of the stats that she gives sometimes are like, wow, the amount of that network marketing is one of the industries, you know, where I don't care if you're a woman or if you're a man, you get paid the same. She
Should be,
really,
right.
yeah, because 90% of network marketing is done by women. Shackley is a little different because we built it so strong with a lot of men back in the day. But who else? Tony Robbins is I've done all of his stuff. I still listen to him. Bob Heilig is a network marketer that he's doing different classes. And I know there's different ones in Shackley that are using that within their groups on a
Right.
weekly basis. I love Stephen Furtick. And I know he's a pastor, but I start my day listening to his talk every day because I think that we need to, and he's, I don't know if he's black or if he just looks like he's partially black, but they have a different kind of energy about themselves when they're excited about things. And I love him for that. But I listen to him in the morning while I'm getting ready all the time. So there's other people, but those are the main ones that I listen to right now. And I still listen to now because I'm part of a master, not the full mastermind, but a different one with her.
And of course, there's Jim Rohn.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And he's as valid today as he was back when we first started building.
Very true.
Yes.
Very true.
That has not changed because he's all mindset.
Well, I think that this is a good time to open the mics so that anybody has some questions for you, has an opportunity to do that, to ask those questions. So Scott, if you can unmute.
Or to unmute yourself if you have a question and state your name and ask the question. Who'd like to go first? How many times have you seen reluctant Shackley people? Not too often.
Well, also, she's done such a great job tonight of
Oh,
really covering the subject so well, so that's part of it as well. But anybody would like to
This
have?
is Jane.
Hi,
Yeah,
Jane.
this is Jane. And yeah, a couple names, you're rattling off names quickly there. Dr. Peter, and you said the book was Outlive. I didn't get the last name.
that was,
Peter Attia, Attia. He's going to be one of the keynote speakers at the conference. And the name of his
Okay.
book is Outlive. And then
Okay.
after that.
I listen to a lot of YouTube of motivation things, and oh my gosh, I forgot her name. Parks. Her name was a lady that was in the military, and she spoke at a
Rochelle
conference.
Parks.
Rochelle, thanks. She was on a podcast where she did not mention Shackley, but then there's others that she does mention, but she talks about health and so forth. And so it's neat when you see somebody from Shackley that's, asked to be on other things and promote wellness, even though it wasn't specifically
And-
saying if you.
Jane, she is OPA.
I was thinking so.
You
Okay.
may have even met her.
Yeah.
She's through
I-
Joanne Nistico.
Oh, well, I think I might have met her, but I remember how great her talk was
Yeah,
before.
she's very good.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to listen to her and not get motivated.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Well, I was just going to say, since this is what we're talking about, the other thing that the daily Danelle activities was to write down, today I will implement what I learned. So listening, I think a minimum of 10 to 15 minutes of what we're talking about, something motivational,
yeah,
and writing down what you learned.
yes, yes.
Great
Very
point.
good. Good
Thanks,
point,
Catherine.
Thank you.
And while Catherine's saying that, well, no, I guess that's not open to everybody. Okay, sorry. Just real proud of her. She's doing some great stuff. Okay, anybody else? Okay, well, if there's no other questions tonight,
Unmute yourself and tell Nina how you appreciate her call. Nina, you were fantastic. And I
Okay.
learned a lot from
Thank
listening
you.
to you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Great job, Randy.
Thanks.
Thanks for being on.
Thank
I
you.
think you all realize that what I said in introduction, how true it is.
Oh,
It's terrific.
Terrific.
Thanks again, Nina. So appreciate it.
you're entirely welcome. You're entirely welcome. All the best to everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Great, everybody.
Thank you, Nina.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.